Hey there, welcome. It's Lotus. I am back. Haven't been here again for a while. I'm just really following the flow and inspiration of what wants to be shared and when and where. Um, since I'm over, of course, on Patreon more, I'm not over here very often. However, we just did a class over on Patreon on Sunday, and basically it's all about living in love with life. And I had a couple thoughts about it that I wanted to share over here. And the first thing that came to my mind is I've noticed this about myself, and I've noticed this sometimes when I've heard other people speak and share about perhaps, the life that they've been crafting and co-creating or manifesting, and the new timelines that we're accessing at this time, um, the shifting that is going on that's really assisting us in making really conscious choices to next level, to step up to our own next level of potential, and different ways of talking about it, different words for it. I tend to use more of that soul presence embodiment and that embodiment of our divinity, right? Those higher levels and expressions of us as we evolve and through our spiritual awakening journey. And so one of the things that I was thinking about, how when life starts getting really good, not everybody gets that, right? Because there's a lot of suffering going on in the world. There's a lot of obviously turmoil, right? Nobody needs to be told what's happening. And yet, when we're on this awakening journey, we're tasked really with creating a different reality as the old reality crumbles, right? That's what we're here for. And there's this disclaimer that I notice is made often, like when our lives are going really good and things are really upshifting and upgrading. And there's always this, my gosh, yeah, life is amazing. My favorite words are, it's flourishing. I love the word flourishing. But then there's always that desire, and oftentimes I do say it, it doesn't mean, right? Just because everything is amazing doesn't mean that there aren't problems, doesn't mean that there's not bumps, doesn't mean that there's not trials and tribulations. And so I was thinking more about that recently, and how for myself, I can remember, boy, it's been a long time ago now, it's been a couple decades ago, when I was just really unhappy, and I was struggling, and I was really stuck, and I was, stuck in addictive patterns, and I was stuck in really unhealthy, and destructive relationships, and I didn't really have a clue where I was going or what that looked like. And part of this time I was still drinking, other parts of it I was sober, but I felt better than I did, but I still wasn't happy, really. But I didn't actually know that I wasn't happy then either. Because everything is relative, right? Different phases and stages have different expressions, and I certainly wasn't miserable anymore. So for me, not being miserable, when I was first in my first few years of sobriety, I was happy, and I was relatively so. But I got really annoyed with really happy people, people that seemed, like they had it all figured out, or they were just genuinely happy people. Maybe they'd had a really good life. Maybe they'd accomplished things that they wanted to accomplish. Maybe, maybe they weren't struggling in the same ways, or maybe they just weren't in touch with their struggle. Any of the above. But for me, I it bothered me. It bugged me, is more like it. And I would get kind of agitated and irritated because I didn't really buy it, I think, on some level. And I didn't believe it and I didn't trust it. And it didn't really seem like we could be free from our suffering. So I noticed that as more of us are freeing ourselves through this inner work, through making different choices in our life, through, I really believe not just doing the inner work, but finding that greater faith and trust in that power greater than ourselves, whatever that is. God, nature, divine source, the universe, whatever that is for us personally. And so as I sort of keep surrendering into that, as my phases and stages of my awakening and ascension journey continue to evolve me, is the way that I usually put that. I'm kind of going along for the ride in a lot of ways at this point. Because it's been 3 decades that I've been doing this work. And there's in many phases and stages of it. And I think that in the last couple years, it's really catapulted. We've had the opportunity to catapult as humanity into a whole different way of experiencing ourselves and our lives. And since I work with embodiment, I'm really aware of not the concepts and the thought forms, even though, I do talk about those and teach about them, but I teach about them from how do we get there? How do we get the transformational experience inside of us to become happy, to feel freer, to feel more peace, to feel more grounded and supported by life when it seems like so much of life is really suffering right now for a lot of people. And and I recognize that the disclaimer is there because there seems like this phase right here where, for me anyway, and I've heard other people, do this, like I said, for me anyway, it's like I want to remain relatable. And I want to let people know that, my gosh, things can get really amazing. And things can still bring challenges because that's how we grow, right? That's how we continue to evolve, and that's how we continue to transform. So for me, I still put that in the fabulous category. Like, everything is amazing. And even when I hit the bumps, I might feel frustrated. I might, kind of dive down into a little bit of powerlessness. But I also know that it's my relationship to whatever that is occurring that allows me to choose, what do I do with the struggle? What do I do with the things that are feeling uncomfortable or painful, or the loss that is upon me? So I feel like there's a big difference between identifying with the struggle and the suffering and the pain and knowing that that is just inherent in the journey. And this is definitely going to have to do with where we're at, right? When you're in the beginning of your journey, it's hard. It's harder because you're really facing those more painful, shameful, fearful parts, right? That shadow piece of the beginning stages and phases. And yet, once you kind of get a handle on that and recognize, oh, those really aren't me or who I am, right? We start to get free from that. And once we start getting into the river of life, right? And those higher states or windows of feeling amazing grow. And they don't just grow automatically, right? Which was part of what this, well, not part of, it's a lot of what the class is like over on Patreon. And you're welcome to jump over there at Lotus at Art of Sacred Embodiment. And it's there for members, free members or paid members. But what we really were focusing on is that we're consistently building the capacity for more happiness, for more joy, for more freedom, for more peace. But it's a frequency. It's not, we can't think our way there. We can't go out and get multiple experiences that are a temporary fix. We actually have to learn to work with the energy and the subtle bodies and the embodiment of those qualities of consciousness. And we have to acclimate to these energies. It's a whole other animal, right? So where we're at right now, I think, is a really interesting juxtaposition from the embodiment perspective, because we're literally embodying and being transformed by our soul presence, right? Parts of us that are now able to be known to us because of what's happening on the planet, because the frequencies of the planet, because we've already moved past the tipping point of this evolutionary process, and we're in it, right? There's no going back. So it's made easier, it's quicker. And yet, Art of Sacred Embodiment teaches us the how-tos, how to do this work, how to understand where each person is at in their own journey, and how to navigate the process of this, from the perspectives and tools and guidance that I've been given and now pass on. So it's a really interesting time, because only about 8 years ago, we were still very much, from the ascension perspective, we were very much in those higher realms, right? Those of us who were doing this work, we were already kind of in the higher realms, in those higher dimensional experiences of freedom and joy and happiness, but we weren't really able, or at least I'll speak for myself, my ability to anchor it in consistent long periods of time was still kind of challenged. But there was enough of the ebb and flow, right, in and out of that let me know you're right on track, so to speak, even if I can't stabilize it. Now we're at the stabilization phase of this. And the stabilization is really stabilizing whatever new frequencies you're at, right? So if you're still doing the deeper shadow work and clearing, every time you break free from that, right? Every time your body releases that pain and that wound, you now are holding a new frequency, a new level of higher consciousness, of light, of freedom, of love, of self-love, of peace. And yet, if we don't know how to stabilize at every juncture and integrate, then it's very easy to get pulled back down into the mire of suffering, right? That resonance is still still in our cellular structure, so then anytime it gets triggered, we get pulled back down. And then we kind of like on this hamster wheel, right, of rising up, getting free, and getting pulled back down. The wound is still too strong. So So what Art of Sacred Embodiment really teaches us is how to stabilize at every juncture, every new level that you reach, so that you don't get pulled back down. And this also goes for one of the examples that I was using in class, is that we have so many, like, everything is blowing open now spiritually, right? We've got the galactics coming online in a much more mainstream way. We've got the shifts happening, the ascension, the divisions, the dimensional, more dimensional recognition and experiences coming online. And it's a lot. We've got a plethora of classes and events that we can partake in to activate specific frequencies, to activate, whoa, I'm in that spaciousness, right? I feel a sense of wholeness. And then an hour later, we're back in that, we drop back down into the status quo of what has always been. Again, this is because the learning how to stabilize the frequency is really mandatory now, in order to, it's always been mandatory, but now our potential for truer, longer levels of freedom and peace and stability inside of us, right? Deeper grounding and connection and our own wholeness, our own self-love, our own recognition of our divinity is right here at our fingertips, which is beautiful. And now we can actually embody it because the frequencies of the planet are holding this light as well. So for those of us, so the class that's over on Patreon, it's very much on the mastery level, right? Where it's like mastery level for those people who have been doing this work, and now we're like really learning to fine tune this new reality within us. It's very exciting. And yet, right, same thing applies for people that are just starting out. So I started out by saying, the interesting thing about this time is that, right, we were sort of like in we were doing this higher level work as we were starting to anchor these new levels of consciousness and frequencies onto the planet. And then around the time of COVID, everything changed, right? Boom. Yes, things happened here on this plane, but what was also happening, I believe, is that the shift was happening, that we were now ready to do the foundational work of really anchoring in the new earth. Simultaneously, everybody has gotten very much awakened, and there are so many things to do. There are so many experiences to have. We have AI, we have technology is moving faster. Everything is moving faster. But from the embodiment perspective, part of the task of embodying is that we actually have to start making choices that don't take us out of our body anymore, that don't scatter our energy, where we start recognizing that in order to sustain my deeper peace and happiness, and to sustain longer periods of joy and of ease and grace, I have to start slowing down. I have to start doing less. I have to start relaxing and softening more. So this is the feminine coming in, the divine feminine coming in more and more to bring us home. Because all the experiences, as important as they are, if we aren't choosing wisely and if we aren't choosing with purpose, we're still on a hamster wheel, but we think that hamster wheel is freeing us, but it's not. The freedom comes from this next level of what I'm calling sweet simplicity and slow-mo life. And it is pulling in from the extraneous circumstances, activities, people, places, things, situations that disempower us, that don't allow our higher frequencies and consciousness and our soul presence to deeply drop in. So it's like I have this full spectrum, right, from like shadow work to the ascension process, right, to the multidimensional experiences and understanding through experiential wisdom, and now into this deep grounding that is going to anchor all of this. And this coincides with some of the other things that I've talked about here and on Instagram and definitely over on Patreon, the ways in which so many new collectives are birthing, right? They're disengaging, they're pulling out from the systems that are no longer working, and new communities and new ways of living are being explored and anchored in, that very much serve more of the highest good for all. And part of that is this recognition that the more that we unplug from, we'll just say, the 3D matrix, right? The more that we unplug from that, it's not as simple as that. And, it's like there's all these phases and stages in between, and where are we putting our choice, and what is our relationship with the things that we are engaged in, right? We have to be engaged with money, most of us, to some degree. So what is our relationship? And most of us, we still have to make a living, but are we aligning ourselves with places to make a living that really support us as well, and that create a sense of wholeness, and that connect with our gifts and our skills and our talents, and something that brings us joy, right? So there's all these moving pieces that really is this relational template of this grounding phase that we're very much in. So a lot of my work now is like, it's interesting because it's got this beautiful flow between the expansion and then this embodiment on this deep, intimate, softening, slowing, nourishment, coming home into love, really landing into peace, and starting to acclimate to happiness. I was talking in the class about how we acclimate effortlessly to pain and suffering because it's what we've known historically for thousands of years, and it's wired in us, right? However, we also are wired into joy and into freedom and into beauty and into abundance and into wisdom and into, our divinity. But we have to break through certain thresholds at this point in order to keep building our ability to acclimate to that. So this next phase and juncture of all of this, right? It's a very holistic system that I work within, and again, it's 30 years of like synthesizing all of these layers and phases and stages into what's happening now. And so the way that I am supporting people in this is through containers of either 8 or 12-week intensives where we really understand, like, where are you beginning? What are the deepest, what are the biggest hurdles? Where are your openings to your peace and your joy and your happiness? And how do we start anchoring that in more and more and more? Because the more light that we anchor in, the easier that becomes, right? Or the more consciousness. So many words we can use. Frequencies, right? It's all the same thing. But the more of that higher level vibration that we can start to live from, the easier it becomes. So you can pop over onto my website, lotuslinley.net. If you go under offerings, the first offering is the Sacred Embodiment Journey. And again, it's either 8 or 12 weeks. It's an intensive. It's every week or every other week, depending on schedule. And, there's flexibility within it, but it's a committed container, right? Like once we begin, it's for those of you who are really, you're at that juncture of yes, it's time. It's time to move to the next level. So you can definitely check that out if it speaks to you at all. And then there's the second offering, which is another 8 or 12-week container that works within the new paradigms of sacred partnership and relationship. So it's a really interesting time. It's a really beautiful time. And, I have to keep attesting to myself as well. Wow, it really is good. And it's staying good. Right? The realities that we can create now, we can choose choice by choice by choice to move towards something that is probably not what we've known, even as individuals, many of us, probably at all. I mean, I think there's some very happy people and joyful people, but because of the potential that we hold within us as evolving beings, we are surpassing the emotional states of just feeling happy or feeling content, right? We are surpassing those now into states of being that don't fluctuate. And they've always been inside of us, but there's been so many layers and things wound around us. And now we're unwinding them faster and faster and faster. And we're learning how to choose to stay on track rather than think we're on track, but sabotaging, self-sabotage keeps happening and subconscious barriers keep happening. But I will say the portal into all of this is slowing down, and it's hard. This is a hard one. It's slowing down. It's learning how to have a different kind of faith and trust with life, with the world around us and the changing world, but also the natural world and the higher dimensional world that's slowly merging with us. And I say those of us who are choosing it, because while this is happening for everyone on whatever level, we can go faster. We can have an easier, softer journey of this, and we can understand it and sort of have a holistic experience of what is happening when we are choosing it proactively and step by step, um, following the yellow brick road, right? Or following that golden brick road, as I like to call it. So it's a beautiful time. And this is also why so much is going on with the nervous system regulation. You know, everybody's working to regulate their nervous system and the vagal nerve. And part of that is because it's really hard to enter into this new grounded space when our nervous system is highly dysregulated and activated. When we're constantly taking in information and mental and intellectual stimulus, because again, this next level is about embodiment. It's about love. It's about coming into the wisdom of the sacred technology and this temple space that is the physical body, right? Everything is coming online in the body a lot more as well. I haven't really dove into Dr. Catherine Clinton. She's talking a lot about the fascia and the intelligence and the wisdom of our waterways and the fascia, and also the intelligence of the mitochondria. So, you know, I was with Biomancy University for a year, 2020, maybe 2 years, 2022 through 24, I think. You know, and it's very much all of this as well, like really working somatically but energetically and understanding this process that is taking place in our physical form so that we can hold more of the true essence that we are. And I do use these terms because I believe they're important to use so that we understand that there is a deep shift and a really profound transformation that is taking place. We're moving beyond what we know from our mere human limited understanding at this point. So it's very, I think it's very exciting times, and things can get really beautiful. Your life can get magical and peaceful and full of love and full of vibrancy and flourishing. So I would love to support that if that is something that calls to you. Again, you can go over to lotuslinley.net and just kind of peruse and see what you find. Also, if you'd like to join us over on Patreon, that would be lovely. There is a membership tier that is $8.88 a month, and we're working with about 3 to 4 gene keys a month, getting activations, light language activations, and the new moon and the full moon meditation journeys as well, because light language is the one of the most powerful technologies to raise our frequency and to bring us into our higher, more expanded, more joyful ways of being. Yeah, so that's what I got for you today. I'd love to see you. Links are below, and if this resonates, give me a like. Let me know that yeah, I'm speaking your language. All right. Much love, many blessings. Thank you so much for being here. If you came all the way till the end, thank you for listening, and I'm assuming resonating. Many blessings. Be well.